Hi everybody, I am back today with a story that has come from something that I have suffered from. I know many people do, and also when I worked or when I was doing calming mind therapy, it was one of the most prolific reasons for anybody to be in therapy, actually. Anxiety, depression, panic attacks, and unless we understand them and know what we can do to self-soothe, it becomes a huge problem. Also, in the past, I have done hypnosis. I learnt hypnosis in England a long, long while ago from a wonderful man. So let's sort of try and turn anxiety around a little bit. It's called anxiety, the roundabout of life, because it's an anxiety loop, which is thought, then emotion, and then action, and then reinforcement of that action and thought, and it starts all over again. So the thought leads to an emotion, the feeling, how you feel. If you feel fear, if you feel anger, if you feel a crying emotion, that's what you will do, because the action comes next, and then it's followed very quickly by the reinforcement of those things that you're suffering. And then you get thrown into a trigger or a thought again. So round and round and round you go. So this tale from the rowan tree, we are speaking of something that many people live with quietly, something that can arrive without warning and convince us completely that it is real. Some call it anxiety and some call it panic, but beneath it there is a pattern. The pattern is a loop. This gentleman didn't notice the thought. That was the first thing. He was standing at Nell Rowan's gate, one hand resting lightly on the latch, and he noticed instead the feeling, the tightening, just beneath the collarbone. Not pain, not fear, just something shifting. He drew in a breath. It didn't quite land, so he tried again. And then it came, the panic. It rose quickly. His chest tightened further. Held now rather than simply noticed, his breath shortened, catching before it could deepen those shallow, panicky breaths, and his heart began to beat faster, harder, faster and harder. The thought was there, something's wrong. And with that, everything accelerated. What if I can't breathe? What if this gets worse? What if I lose control? He tried to steady himself, tried to take a deeper breath, but it didn't satisfy. He tried again. And still, it wasn't enough. Now the panic was fully there. A surge moving through him, fast, overwhelming, undeniable. And beneath it, just as strong, came something quieter. Embarrassment. Not here. Not where someone might see me. But the lane was still, quiet, unchanged. But inside him, everything had shifted. Nell opens the door. She opened the door before he could knock. Nell stood there calm and steady, as though she had seen this before. She didn't ask what was wrong. She simply said, "Come in. You don't need to stand out there with it." And something in that allowed him to move. The air inside was warm, settled without being heavy. A kettle rested just off the boil, and a cup was already waiting. Nell moved without fuss, pouring tea as though this moment had been expected. He sat down carefully, still aware of his breath. "I almost didn't come in," he said. Nell handed him the cup. "It started out there," he said. "Yes," she agreed quietly. He gave a small, apologetic laugh. "I don't even know what it is," he said. After a moment, he added, "I keep expecting something to go wrong, even when things are fine. They just don't feel safe. My mind goes ahead of me and I follow it." He paused. "It's like I arrive somewhere before anything has actually happened." "Tell me about the very first thing," Nell said gently. He frowned. "It can be small," he said, "almost nothing." She waited. He couldn't form the words. So Nell said, "It's a thought." He looked at her uncertainly. "So I'm just having a thought that panics me?" Nell shook her head gently, and she said, "You're entering a loop." "A loop," he repeated. "Yes," she said quietly, "a road, a closed road, that feels like a never-ending loop." He let out a slow breath. "That's exactly how it feels," he said, "like I'm going somewhere, but I never arrive." So Nell explains to him the chemical truth. "It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense," he added. "I can be doing nothing, and suddenly it's there. It feels like my body has decided something before I have." Nell nodded. "Yes," she said softly, "because your body is faster than your thoughts." She placed a hand lightly over her chest. "When a thought carries meaning, your body responds very quickly. And then there is a chemical surge, physical, real, that moves through you." He watched her closely. "How long?" he asked. "A minute, perhaps a little more," she said, "but long enough to prepare you and then pass." He shook his head. "But that's not what happens. It doesn't pass." "No," Nell said gently, "because the thought returns and it calls it back again. So what should pass in moments is repeated and repeated, time and time again." She paused. "Minutes become hours, hours become days, and for some, years." She held his gaze. "It's not the feeling that stays," she said. "It's that the road keeps leading back to it." Nell stood then and walked toward the window, looking out towards the green. "There's a road just past there," she said, "a roundabout. You can see every exit as you approach it." He followed her gaze. "But if you don't take one exit, you simply go round again." And she paused. "But on a real road, you would notice you were circling, wouldn't you? Eventually, you would choose an exit or stop the car." She turned back to him. "But you don't notice this one, do you?" He shook his head. "No," he said, "it feels like I have to keep going." "There are always possibilities on a road like that," Nell said. And he frowned. "It doesn't feel like it." "No," she said, "because you're moving far too quickly to see them." So she turned fully toward him now. The way to understand relief would be one that looks like a single slow breath. 2, it looks like naming what is happening, not what might happen. 3, looks like letting the feeling just sit without trying to solve it. And 4, looks like doing something ordinary while it passes. But at the moment, you just can't do that, she said. You don't have to take that first exit, she said quietly. Most people can't. Now returned to the table and drew a simple circle. At the centre, she wrote, "Go." "You enter here," she said, and then she marked 4 exits. On a real roundabout, she added, some people miss their exit. They pass the first, then the second, and suddenly they're unsure, so they circle again and again and again, trying to work it out while still moving around that circle. And as you move around the anxiety roundabout, every sign says the same, straight ahead, but with that pattern that goes on and on. Think of it as this now. The first exit is the emotion. You can feel it fully now. Fear, panic, anger, dread. The body has answered the thought. The chest tightens, the breath shortens, and the heart races. It feels real, it feels urgent, but you just can't take an exit. The sign in front of you says, straight ahead. Or you could have taken that exit, but as you continue, you see there's a second exit and you go straight ahead again, and this is the action. Now you respond. You try to fix it. Try to control it. Maybe leave the situation, avoid it, fight it. But you physically can't. Again, a sign says, straight ahead. And so you continue. There's the third exit. This is that reinforcement. And here it becomes stronger because what you have just done tells your mind that your thought was true. That if you panicked, there must have been a danger. Of course there was. If you avoided it, there must have been something to fear. You must have been frightened. And if you left, if you took one of these exits, there must have been something to escape. So stay on the roundabout. And so the loop tightens. Just think maybe there's the last roundabout exit. And again, you have that choice. It goes straight ahead. Or you could come off, but you continue. And the fourth exit is no real exit. You are taken straight back to the beginning, back to the start, and off you go again. Another thought, another surge, another turn, round and round and round you go. She looked at him, and the longer they stay on, the harder it feels to leave. He nodded slowly. This is that loop. The roundabout explanation maybe makes more sense of it. So just remember, in that loop, the first turn is the thought. That's what starts it off. What if something's wrong? The second is the emotion. The body answers, panic, fear, tightness, breath. The third is that action where you try to fix it. You try to escape it. You try to control it. And then the fourth, she says, is the reinforcement. It makes you panic. This is where it becomes stronger. Because whatever you do, it tells your mind that that original thought was true. Even if it was Nothing. It was just a trigger from the past. She tapped the circle and said, this becomes a loop of meaning. A thought that feels true because everything that follows it seems to agree. And the mystery is, it happens so quickly, she said. It feels so convincing every single time. He nodded. It feels real enough to believe, he said. The man left puzzled, but ready to try and understand. He didn't return the next day or the next. But when he did, he stood a little differently. I saw it, he said. Nell didn't ask what. The roundabout, he said. I was on it. I knew I was on it. I knew I was starting it. And she nodded. And I went round, he admitted. I didn't take the first exit or the second. Of course not, Nell said gently. And then he gave a small, disbelieving smile. But somewhere near the end, I stopped trying to fix it. A quiet pause. I stopped trying to fix it because I realised it was that anxiety loop again. And it didn't throw me back to the beginning. Nell's eyes softened. You didn't complete the loop, she said. You understood to stop that loop. Congratulations. There are many things in life that feel as though they happen to us. Sudden, overwhelming, uncontrollable. Anxiety can feel like that. Panic really feels like that. As though something has taken hold without warning. But often, what feels like chaos is a pattern we have never been shown. That thought that passes quickly and a body that responds honestly with an action that feels totally necessary. And that reinforcement just makes it all seem so true. And so the loop continues, not because we're weak, not because we are broken, but because we have been travelling a road without realising that we just kept passing the exit. That anxiety does not begin with panic. It begins quietly. But once you see it, you are no longer without a choice, because halfway round, you may choose not to go straight ahead, to repeat and repeat and repeat. So now, if you've been listening, just imagine a quiet roundabout, not busy, not rushed. Just a simple circle in a soft evening light. You're moving slowly now. Not caught, not punished, just aware. You can see the road ahead and you can see the exits. You don't need to take one yet. Just notice that they are there. And then when the thought comes, this time you see it. That feeling starts to rise, and this time you allow it. And as you move gently around, you begin to understand something. You're not trapped here. You were never meant to circle forever. And when you're ready, you can turn. You do have that choice. So, here from the rowan tree, this is not about stopping everything all at once. It is about seeing. And once something is seen, it gently begins to loosen. Quietly, in its own time. I hope that somehow, when you're listening to this or after you've listened to it, give it a little bit of time to settle and understand when that panic or that anxiousness starts to creep up on you, that within 90 seconds it can take a hold of you. So just be prepared and know that you can leave that situation. And hopefully the next time you will understand it a little better. And I wish you all peace.